Yo, what it do, support crew? Welcome back to another episode of the Moral Support Podcast. It's your host, Duane, As, my brother, Pastor Eric Yule.
Let's go.
Yeah, man. It's a very special podcast, very special guest. I'm excited for this conversation, man. It's been a long time coming. You know what I'm saying? First time we had a guest on the show. Welcome.
Yeah, you're our first one. That's honorable in itself right there.
Appreciate being here.
Absolutely.
Always a blessing to sharpen iron with iron.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Man, I'm just glad to be in this space. Now being to a point where we could have guests and, talking to people full of value that could give back, that's been giving back to the community for some time now. I wanted to ask, how long have you been in this space of, I guess, being a pastor, being a staple in the community?
So I started in ministry in 2005. So 2005 is when I became a minister at a church in Belsuver, which is South Side, Pittsburgh, small neighborhood. It was my uncle's church. So my uncle passed away. We joined the church after he passed away. But that's where, I got the call to ministry. And we started working immediately. It's just kind of who we are. My wife and I can never act as though, anything I do is solo. Outside of my wife, there's a lot of other people who work as well. But, the reality is, she's been there from day one, supporting it all. So, but yeah, we started working back then. One of the first things we did was took a trip to Cedar Point. We filled a bus up with 50 people. I took them to Cedar Point, and we had Daz will, know this, but we had a small baby. We always add extra wrinkle. They never just, plan the trip. We had a small baby on our way to Cedar Point. It was dope though. But that's when kind of got the thirst to, help people experience things that they don't normally experience. You know what I mean? Because in our neighborhoods, it's a field trip to go to Kennywood. You know what I mean? Right. So when you talk about Cedar Point,
it's not even in the state. Yeah,
it's not even in the state. So you got to drive out of state. You know what I mean? So coordinating all of that was definitely a blessing though when we get there and you see people experience something that they hadn't experienced before. So that kind of got our appetite, to want to be out there.
So you said 2005, if you don't mind asking. How old, was that around?
So in 2005, I was 23.
Wow. 23. I ain't gonna lie, that's crazy, yeah. So I do want to ask, so before, I guess whenever your uncle, right, had passed, did you have a talk with God and he was like, okay, this is my time to kind of step up into this space?
I wish it was that eloquent, but it wasn't, I'll tell the story often, never on this podcast, so it'll be the first time your listeners may hear it, but my wife, when we got together and we were dating, and we were talking seriously about future, she said two things I need from the person I'm going to marry, and one was that he goes to church. She said, I don't need you to be a deacon, I don't need you to be a pastor, none of those things, but I just need you to go to church. And she said, the other thing is, I don't want somebody with a habit, like drinking or smoking every day. I can't do that. So those two things. And I was a heavy drinker and a heavy smoker, you know what I mean? Now, I didn't smoke every day, but when I drank and when I smoked, it was heavy, you know what I mean? So that was a little rough, you know what I mean? Going to church I thought was easy, you know what I mean? That's an easy thing. But I did give up drinking and give up smoking. It took a little while, you know what I mean?
Good. No,
it's not in her presence, you know what I mean? But after a while, it was just in nobody's presence.
Absolutely.
But, we were in church, and my cousin who was an addict walked into the church, and we were already in worship. And my eyes were closed, and when I saw her, tears just started rolling down my face, and I couldn't contain myself. And before I knew it, I was standing in front of the pastor, and he said, God is telling you to do something. And without thinking, the word preach came out of my mouth. So, when you ask how I got into it, that was literally it. There was no thoughts or desire, to do anything. I was just enjoying coming to church with my wife and my kids, you know what I mean? I was enjoying the experience.
Awesome.
Yeah, right. I thought that's what it was, but there was something being cultivated that I didn't know. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But I think some of the things that the Lord saw was my spirit. You know what I mean? I was a helper. I always see myself as a helper. And the fact that I was just there and I was helping, I think that's what the Lord said. There's more for you.
That's dope. I think it's dope that you share that because you've been, I guess, in contact with my brother, with Paul, for quite some time, and I never met you formally until the 24-hour man, and I was that was my first time, and I've heard such great things, just how good of a person he was, how genuine he was, and I would always hear your name, then he brought your name up, and I'm like, okay, like I think he know Paul, like I think Paul know him, and you know, when I met you, I felt instantly like, okay, this is what they talking about, like, you know, because I'm in this environment now where we having this man conference, and it's just nothing but love, genuineness, and like everybody, you know, kind of getting along as men and being vulnerable together. I then understood what they were talking about with you, because you kind of led the way, you know what I'm saying, and you've done a great job with that. And I'm like, wow, like this is, you can tell where somebody's heart is, like, you know, just by their energy and the words that they speak. And right then and there, I was like, okay, yeah, I get it. I'm instantly attached to this guy now, because I know where his heart's at, and I know where his spirit is leading him. And I mean, truly, like I really was blessed to be a part of that conference. I mean, I'm blessed to be in your presence as much as I am, which isn't a lot, but every time I can feel it, like, you know, like I get this jolt of energy, and no, it's love, and it's definitely respected, because we need more people like you. We need more men like you in the communities. You're doing your thing with it, and you're leading a great example. So I definitely just want to give you your flowers and say I appreciate you.
I appreciate that.
Definitely,
I appreciate that.
definitely.
You know, it's definitely hard. You know what I mean? Especially when, and I've said this before, you know, to our church, you know, it's difficult being a pastor who's not following the path, right? Because there's a path when you become a pastor. You know what I mean? You get your credentials. You know, you build your church. You know, you build this platform for yourself. You know what I mean? And it's not the right way, but it's just like this path. You know what I mean? So when you're not following that path, you know, your counterparts are like, "What are you doing?" You know, and then B, you know, people who are potential, you know, parishioners and followers of the Lord through you, also are like, well, why isn't this church doing what that church is doing? You know what I mean? So, or why do y'all do it this way? Or why don't y'all do this? You know, so it's always a difficult space. But my wife and I, we always see, and, you know, this is the longest we've done anything, you know, it would be 11 years in May. But this is the longest we've done anything. And we've always noticed that we're starters of things. So this is like the first time we're moving into a season of sustainment of something. You know what I mean? So like we come in somewhere, we get it going, because we know how to build the foundation, you know what I mean? And then we can pass it off to somebody, be like, all right, you know, our part is done, but this is the first time, like, rolling over into year 11. It's like, okay, the Lord hasn't said move yet. So we're like, okay, we just want to keep rolling with this thing, you know what I mean? So
how challenging is that? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, it's not challenging. Well, which part? I guess
Sustaining opposed to starting, like like what was, is it more challenging than starting, or do you think you just became so experienced in starting things and inexperienced in sustaining or managing?
It is challenge. The challenge is delegation, right? Because when you start something, you know, it kind of starts and ends with you. You know what I mean? But when you're sustaining something, you know, there's a level of you started something and now you have to pass it on, and you have to be here to watch it continue to grow and or not. You know what I mean? Because typically,
or it ends with you.
Or it ends with you. And that's the thing. When we say we're builders, nothing really ends with us. You know what I mean? That's so that the point that God always makes is, I'm going to use you to build it, and I'm going to bring somebody along to sustain it. But this time it's like, nah, y'all here for a little while. You know what I mean? So, you know, we haven't got the call. Even when we came to Duquesne, when we were in Clairton at my wife's grandfather's church, and at that point, you know, God sent me there on assignment. So I knew from day one, this is temporary. I didn't know how temporary it was going to be. We were there for several years, but when God said move, you know, it was time to move. But nobody believed it. You know what I mean? Everybody's like, well, this is your grandfather's church. You know, like, this is legacy. You're going to be here. You know what I mean? But we were like, nah, it's temporary. You know what I mean? So this is like, in that first time, it's just like, all right, we don't really see no end in sight. You know what I mean? And it's challenging. It is challenging because I always get fresh ideas. You know, some people call me a visionary. And if you know anything about a visionary, you know, they're always in a visionary state. You know what I mean? It's not always the building and the planning and all of those things. So that's challenging as well, you know. But even on my job, I've been for 7 years, so that's also, you know, challenging.
That's where that faith come into place, huh? You got to trust. Like you said, you just been cruising through the tunnel for so long. Now it's like, I don't know what's at the end of the tunnel, but you're trusting in faith and your faith and where you lie your faith to just keep cruising. And I just admire that so much, being on the sideline, because I hear a lot of your visions, and I know, I'm like, Pastor, how you going to find a time to do that? Who's doing that? Where, when, how? Like, but the God that you serve, and just, you know, and the stillness within it all too, because, you know, you get these visions often, and I, you know, sometimes you pitch things to me, and I'm like, wow, that's great, but you're still within it all, and
that's been the greatest lesson that I've learned recently, Des, is that, you know, I sent you the pictures yesterday. I just finished a mobile bike shop, and this has been on my heart for 6-7 years. You know what I mean, almost. So that's been a study in in itself, like getting a vision and understanding that just because you got the vision today doesn't mean it's coming to fruition tomorrow. Because the reality is God is so deep in such a way that He's going to show you something to show you that He's God, right? But then, back to Desmone's point is the faith. You also have to have the faith to understand that just because He showed it to you today doesn't mean it's coming tomorrow. You know what I mean? But we lose and we for lack of knowledge. That's what the Bible says, right? My people perish for a lack of knowledge, and I think our vision sometimes perish because we don't have a lack of faith. And I think that's the challenge. You know what I mean? Is the faith to know that if He showed it to you, it's going to come to pass, right? But you have to build the resolve. You have to, there's a lot of things that have to take place because if He builds it, it's going to be sustained. You know what I mean? Now, if you get the vision and you go out and build it tomorrow, and you didn't build it according to His will, it's going to fold. It doesn't mean that His vision doesn't mean the vision that He gave you was wrong. It just means that you took hold of the vision and did it yourself versus saying, all right, God, you gave me the vision. I'm going to wait on you.
You built it on the wrong foundation. And then it shows, that's biblical as well. In Corinthians, it says, you got to build on His foundation.
On His foundation.
See something according to His will. Even if it's something according to His will, the foundation is the most foundational part about it. And we miss that important first step.
All the time.
And it shows.
So, no, that's a great point. And me and Desi, we talk about, like, faith and trust, like, a lot. You know what I'm saying? We talked about it a few times on here, but just in our conversations outside of here, we always talk about faith and trust because of certain things that we may be dealing with in our personal lives. Like, we just always stand by our faith and our trust. So we talk about it. We think a lot of people lack that faith and trust. Right. And it's not, people get put in certain situations where they might be motivated or they might be like driven to do something, but they don't necessarily trust it. Like they don't, or have faith in it. Like, you know, and I think with our people, I think that's something that we deal with probably more than just about anybody else. And I think somebody like you, to be a visionary, to be that leader of faith, and people putting their trust into you, they could kind of live within that through you. And I just think that's so dope.
It is.
Man.
And that's heavy. That's heavy, because again, there's not a person on this planet who doesn't have a lapse of faith and trust. You know what I mean? So even in knowing that people trust me, and I also sometimes have a lapse in faith and trust, that's challenging. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And the biggest thing is with that in terms of faith and trust is that, you have to put all of your faith and trust in God. At the end of the day, if you've ever been in any of our services, I always point your faith and your trust back to Him. Now I understand that, I'm tangible, you know what I mean? And people see God working through me, so I accept that responsibility. Mm-hmm. But the reality is, you know what I mean, for me, that's where all my faith and trust is at, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, and I can tell you in 11 years of pastor, there have been people who have made promises to me that they were going to be there who are not, you know what I mean? Yeah. Made financial commitments that they haven't held up, you feel me? So, at some point I was trusted in them and it hurt. It hurts when people say they're going to do something and they don't. Even if it's just my presence, you know what I mean? Yeah. So now it's just like, again, I'm to that place where I have to trust God, you know what I mean? And nobody else, not even including myself, because I fail myself, you know what I mean? Right. And that's the hardest thing, when you fail yourself, because if I can't trust me, who do I trust? Mm-hmm. But you said something though, Duane, is that our people, you know what I mean, and what we've been through, everybody from the time that, and I'm speaking of African Americans as a whole, everybody since we hit this continent, you know what I mean, that we trusted, have shown ourselves not to be trustworthy. You feel me? And even in that, we've been pitted against each other to where we can't trust each other. You know what I mean? So, what I love about our particular ministry that we're engaged in is that, we work with you through that place, because the reality is I understand. You know what I mean? I want you to trust me, but I need to first earn your trust. You know what I mean? But also make you aware that there's going to come a time, because I'm human, you know what I mean, that you're not going to be happy with something that happened between us, whether it be trust or faith or anything. Right. So that becomes the biggest thing, you know what I mean? And that's the healing place. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what the church really needs to be, is a healing place. Mm-hmm. And any faith that you're going to be involved in needs to be a healing place. That's the key to having faith and trust.
Yeah, absolutely. That's dope, man. I think you again brought up a great point as far as that. Ever since African Americans have came here, everybody we trusted kind of turned their back on us, or everything didn't go the way we expected it to. And I try to explain to people who are non-African Americans, right? And obviously not everybody's going to understand, what it's like to be a person of color or to go through certain struggles. And the number one question is like, okay, so why are our communities like this? A lot of, more so than other cultures and other communities. And I think it's that trauma of trust and not having faith into the things that we are supposed to or were believed to. I think that's passed on from generation to generation.
Absolutely.
I think it's a generational thing of just trauma of not being able to trust. Your parents wasn't able to trust. Your great grandparents wasn't able to trust. So that just goes along the line of you. Like, and it might be something that we don't necessarily see, but I think that amount of people that goes through that trauma collectively turns into the communities out which we reside in or grow up in. And again, like it's kind of difficult to kind of talk about this to people within our communities because they don't even see that. Like
they don't
see
because they're so broken. You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
you said, the trauma that is instilled within us, the trauma that we've been through, is both past and present. So when you kind of just take yourself in that place of the brokenness, you don't really hear what somebody who's healed is telling you. Like, you don't understand that perspective on what they're giving because they're still in their broken place.
You don't see healing, you know what I mean?
Don't.
And to your point, Duane, the thing is from our community is that, again, mistrust has been passed down, you know what I mean? And when you look at other cultures, if you look at the Asian culture, Asian American culture, like even if I got an ought with my brother, I know that when it comes down to it, I can trust him, because of the connection for us both being Asian. You look at the Italian community, it's the same. Like they have fights in arguments and don't like each other, but when they leave outside of their community, it's collective. Number one, number two, they also have collective goals for their community, right? So at minimum, if nothing else, the Italians are going to be okay in this community. If nothing else, the Asians are going to be okay. And you're even seeing that in the Hispanic as well, because that's a newer population to the Mon Valley in particular in terms of masses, and they do the same thing.
I see. I mean, you see it in the African culture too. Like the Africans that come here from Africa, like today, like whether it's like the Haitians, even Jamaicans, they have their own communities where they set their vendors up. They flourish in them communities, right? And they come over to be doctors. They come over to, and it's just it's unfortunate because we are born with certain freedoms and stuff, and we can take advantage of this stuff. But there's not enough people like you per se, to kind of lead the way. And
but look at it from this perspective. One of the things that blew my mind early in the ministry, I went to Uniontown and we were doing street ministry, and we walked up to this apartment, townhouse in Uniontown in the projects, and there were 5 generations in this apartment. So when you look at it from the perspective of what you just said, from Haitians, from Africans to Italians to Asians, they know their country of origin, and they also know the values that their country embodies. This is 5 generations in one apartment in the same projects. You feel me? So our country of origin is the projects in Uniontown as far as what they know. You know what I mean? So all they know,
too, not
survival, and all they know is brokenness. You see what I'm saying? So like, it was mom, it was grandma, it was mom, it was dad, it was son, and then it was grandson. You know what I mean? All in the same apartment. You know what I mean? And again, this level of survival, this level of this is what we know. You know what I mean? Of who we are, because where do a lot of us trace our roots back to? We migrated north from south. You see what I'm saying? Like that's our connection to any kind of heritage. You know what I mean? And most of our people that were there all came here. So that becomes, again, our origin. When you ask me where I'm from, my family originated in Belle-Suver, because that's where my grandmother was at. You feel me? And all my aunts and uncles and so on and so forth. So that's our place of origin that we can be traced back to. So when you have these new programs that are tracing people's blood and back to, their African or wherever roots, you know what I mean?
But it's really like, how accurate is it?
Because I agree with you on that.
You know what I'm saying? Because, I mean, as far as I know, is my people from Homestead, and then my mom from St. Louis. But, like, obviously me being half and half, I could kind of trace back to where my white side come from. Like, like they Germany, like, stuff like that. Now, black people, they be like, oh yeah, we from Africa. It's a continent.
It's a continent.
What part of Africa? What tribe? Like,
and that's so crazy because, in school, what do we think as Africa as being like New York? Like Africa is a continent. That's not a city. Like
exactly.
You can't say I'm traced back to Africa. Like there's 1,001 cultures in Africa,
right.
And I'm probably underestimating, the number.
Absolutely.
When you look at it from that perspective. So that's the hard part for us. And what have we been breeded? So let's go back to the family that had 5 generations in the projects. What is in the projects? It's kill or be killed. It's I eat, you don't eat. You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
this is what we're breeding. You know what I mean? So we don't even think about that aspect out. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So my wife and I, like, she grew up in a 2-parent household. Her mother went to college. You know what I mean? Her grandfather was a preacher, so she had a different upbringing than I had. You know what I mean? So at that point, what we decided was, if within our will and our power, we're not going to live in the projects. You know what I mean? Yeah. We wanted our sons to grow up in the house. You know what I mean? And this is where she and I kind of butt heads early on, is because I feel like, and I still feel like today, is that we can't change the hood if we're not in the hood. You know what I mean? So like, she didn't necessarily want to live in the hood. She loves working in the hood and trying to support the hood. She has no qualms with the hood because she grew up there herself.
Absolutely.
But the reality for me was, though, like, I need to be here. You know what I mean? Like, how many people get degrees and do well for themselves and will still support the hood but not come back to the hood in terms of living? We can't change it if we're not here. But
I'm sorry to stop you, but it kind of works both ways. I think we touched on it too a little bit, maybe on one of the podcasts or outside, but the hood tend to push them people away too, because if them people who are successful, who went to school, who became professionals in whatever field that they're in, they kind of like get looked at like they have to do everything. They get that pressure on them where they got to take care of everybody. You know what I'm saying? And to a point where they're like, I might as well just go somewhere else because I can make sure that my family's gonna be cool, safe. I don't have all this pressure of taking care of everybody who, don't even know me like that, but expect me to take care of them and take care of, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's like they go out to these other communities that's already established and already well built, and
how easy is that though?
And that goes back to one of the key words of you all's talks up to this point is trust. Mm-hmm. Like I've lived in Duquesne now. We bought our house. I've been there for almost 10 years. You know what I mean? So, but I had to gain the community's trust. Yeah. And there were times when, like I tell everybody, I'm going to disappoint you at some point because I'm not perfect. Mm-hmm. And there was a time when I disappointed some people, you know what I mean? But what I didn't do was leave because, I have the ability to leave. Mm-hmm. And for our own safety, and I don't fault anybody, so anybody out there watching, if you don't live in the hood, I'm cool with that. Yeah. And for our own safety, though, we're going to move because, I did break someone's trust. And, there is ill will and bad feelings about me. So now I can't be here, and for good reason. You know what I mean? Because ultimately my kids are my responsibility. Absolutely. You know what I'm saying? Sure. So ultimately that's it. You know what I mean? And if I had any regrets, that's the one thing I regret is that my sons, all of my sons now have friends who have been murdered, you know what I mean? Or died, for some cause that wasn't, natural.
What's crazy? Well, I want to ask, what do you think the percentage on like each end of like how many percentage-wise, how many people that grew up in the hood do you think have somebody that they knew or were once close to that died from?
I mean, without saying 100%, I would say 99. Like, if you grew up in the hood, there's very little chance that somebody you knew and or was close to, a minimum, was sitting in the class with. Like, for example, the young man at Woodland Hills who just passed away, like, the whole school was hurt. You know what I mean? The whole school was hurt. But that's their second murder this academic year. You see what I'm saying? So when you think about a classmate, even if I know his name at minimum. So if I come to school and he sat in the same class as me, 2 rows over, 2 seats up, he's not there no more. You know what I mean? So you think about it from that perspective. But then it hit me too, like some of these teachers that have been in schools like Woodland Hills for 20 and 30 years, Woodland Hills has had one of the highest numbers of students, at student age being murdered. And you think about a teacher who has to come to school every day and teach kids that, and there's empty seats, you know what I mean? And you're talking about now, some of these people are teaching children of people that they've taught who've passed away. You see what I'm saying? So, crazy. When you think about trauma in the hood, and we want to really rag on teachers and rag on schools, you know what I mean? But what are we really doing to support these people? You know what I mean? Like, they're people too. They get paid, you know what I'm saying?
And they carry a heavy burden.
They carry a heavy burden, you know what I mean?
And they get underpaid.
And they're underpaid. Some people think they're overpaid.
Oh, that's
crazy.
Well,
Pennsylvania teachers overall are some of the highest paid in the country, but still underpaid based on, what we ask them to do. So, from that perspective, it's really a full team game, and everybody wants to point to really what somebody else could be doing to change it, but not really looking at all the things. You know what I mean? So even for me to sit here and say to you, when you get successful, I want you to come back to the hood. You got different experiences I had. You know what I mean? You might have lost a friend who lives on the street that your house is on. You feel me? So it's not fair for me to say you need to live in. That's why I say anybody who don't want to live in the hood, I'm cool with that. Yeah. But for me, that was just my thing. I mean, that was the leading and the calling that I felt like I had. But I don't fault anybody who don't want to do that.
So just to back up a little bit and take it slow. I know we mentioned kind of the principles of programming a hood in a sense, and I know like you said that it was 5 generations in that one house, and I know on the flip side, 2 sides to every coin. Some cultures use that same structure to get ahead. Like they leverage the fact that 5 generations will live in one house, or maybe not 5, but we're gonna have our family live in these houses until we each get their own house. We see that in other cultures, and like you said, in that 5 generational house home, we're sustained there. Like we're content there. Like this is our survival guide. We're not trying to do this so our grandchild can inherit this, and So I just want to, with your works in the community and your understanding of the need to kind of program things, and obviously you run this as a program as well, which we want to talk about as well. Just what is your main perspective when you think about when it comes to programming? Like, what do you think is like the main point of attack that we have to go? I like to say mentalities, but
and that's the ideology, right? Mm-hmm. So I have a unique perspective because we first moved to Duquesne Place where I lived at, it was a mixed community, and not just mixed in regards to race, but mixed income. So, if you look at the projects and the original intent in terms of the writing, now I can't say what the intent was behind the curtain, but when you look at the writing of these programs, right, it was a pass-through to get you to the place to where you have a sustainable career and you can buy a house. It was never intended to be, generational community. It was you get here, you get yourself together, and then you move and you buy a house. It was like that in between. And I've seen, and what I saw, and hopefully if I ever finish my book, y'all will read it one day. But there was a point in when I moved to Duquesne Place where all of my white friends moved out. And they all moved out into houses in different places in the community. And all that was left was this remnant, you know what I mean, of black folks, many who were not properly educated, many of them who didn't really have a financial structure to be building to purchase a house. And when they backfilled those, it wasn't with people who were trying to move out. It was with the people who were in the same position as the people who were already there. So then it turned into what we call the projects now, you know what I mean? And that to watch that transition and see it as an adult now, but as a kid, I didn't really understand what I was seeing. But one of the most marked memories that I have is my friend Aaron, best friend I ever had whenever I was a kid. When he moved out, he moved to a place called Hayes, which is not far. It's over near Homestead. And his mom and dad said, hey, Eric, come over and visit us in Hayes. And I went to Hayes, and literally, less than 10 miles from where I lived at, they didn't like me, you know what I mean, and didn't know me. So why they didn't like me, you know what I mean? Right. So my friend Aaron, who grew up with a black friend, now moved to a community where his black friend's not accepted. I haven't talked to Aaron since I left his house that weekend. You feel me? So, when you look at it from that perspective, in terms of programming, back to your original question, Des, is that we have to now begin to assist people in when you're financially stable and ready, let's get you a house, you know what I mean? Right. And what do we know? We already know that your first house is not always your forever house, you know what I mean? Right. Everything is a stepping stone, you know what I mean? And teaching people that, just having a place to live and having a job is sustaining, but we want to see you thrive, right? So the message has to change, right? We want to get to a place where we're sustained and we're what we call stable, but I want to see you thriving. And thriving looks different for everybody, you know what I mean? Some people think thriving is driving a fancy car and having the biggest house on the block. Yeah. But for other people, thriving might be where I can pay my bills and have money if something comes up, and I can take care of it. You know what I'm saying? Because that's people's number one reason for not wanting to buy a house, is that I don't have to worry about the water heater. Right. I don't have to worry about the windows. I don't have to worry about flooding, all of those things. But you're paying 3 times a mortgage and rent to not have that responsibility. You know what I mean? So it's retraining our minds to think, to understand the full scope of that thing, because now this is an asset. You know what I mean? Because, one of my cousins when I was young, she used to lease cars. And she said, I'm never leasing the car again, because she realized after she turned the lease in that she had nothing to show for the 3 years that she had that car.
And she paid more for it than what it was worth.
And she paid more for it was worth, you know what I mean? And now she's in a position where she has to lease another car. You feel me? My wife and I paid the car off, and we wanted to go look at the newer model. We were like, hey, let's go check it out. Yeah. So we went to check it out, and I had a number in my head that I was going to pay, and I told the salesman, this is what I can pay. He kept coming back, and the number was higher than I could pay, you know what I mean? And it was liberating for me to be able to say that the car that I'm driving right now, I own. So if you can't come to my number, I'm good, fam. You know what I mean? Like, here's my number. Yeah, and he thought because he had this young black couple in his office that he's gonna be able to take advantage of us. But we cool. I said first of all, the car that's out there, I done fixed everything on it. So if the alternator goes, I know how to fix it. I'm cool off that, you know what I mean? So, and we drove away. It was so liberating to drive away. Some people might have felt that as a disappointment because they didn't get what they wanted. But for me, it was liberating because
you had what you need.
I didn't need it. And that was the thing, like, I don't need this.
That's good.
I wanted it, but I didn't need it.
That's good.
That's a great question, Des, about programming. But I do want to touch on that a little bit. Like, how, you could tell somebody this, right? So how do you get them from, like, okay, like, they hear you to where they understand? Like, do you think that starts at a young age on, like, okay, like, you tell somebody, let's say, maybe 30, 40, they got younger kids or whatever. So do you think, and I want to say it's not too late, but do you think they immediately right there should start teaching their kids and stuff? Because that's where the change, like, it starts to shift. You know what I'm saying? Because I think there's a lot of, we call them older kids. You know what I'm saying? Some people, like, they stop growing intellectually, maturity-wise. Like, they stop growing at 21. Like, as soon as they get to bars, that's it. Like,
they're grown.
They're grown.
They reached where they wanted to reach,
that's
and I'm cool because, again, what do, even go back to programming, what do we say to our kids? You ain't grown. You ain't grown. So as soon as the law says I'm grown, I'm going to go do grown things. You feel me? But to answer your question, though, Duane, I think that, you have to be able to show kids. You can't just tell kids. Like, I can tell kids things, but to show kids things.
So you have to make money.
Not even just that.
At least expose them to something.
But it goes back to faith. You feel me? Because, again, and I shared this before, my wife and I weren't qualified to buy a house when we bought a house. But we were in a position where we had to have faith. My landlord went so far as to put the for sale sign in our yard while we were still living there, and we weren't in a position to buy it. So he was like, I don't care what y'all going to do. I'm selling this house. You feel me? And, we acted on faith. You know what I mean? And I tell my kids, you know what I mean? Like, we got this because of our faith. You know what I mean? Now, we were probably more financially astute than some, but definitely not to a place.
You still have to put in some work.
You got to put in some work. But we still weren't in a place to where we was, like, in that position where it's like, I should be able to buy a house. Like, we weren't there. You know what I mean? Even in discipline, I wasn't there. She's always been there, but I wasn't there in discipline. But again, it's that faith. So now, and we've had conversation to your point with our kids, like, I would like for this house to stay in our family. You know what I mean? Absolutely. So me and your mom are going to move out of here one day, and hopefully Eric moves in. He's the oldest. You know what I mean? Eric will establish himself, buy a house, and by the time he's ready to buy a house, Nate should be ready to move in here. And you know what I mean? And we keep that ball rolling.
Going, right.
You know what I mean? So, like, at the end of the day, even if we rent it out after they all have their own house, it's still a house that we own that we can go back to. You know what I mean? At minimum, if we say if somebody falls on hard times, we got to tell our renter, look, after your lease is up, you got to go. Eric's coming back. You know what I'm saying?
That's the power that you have.
In ownership.
In ownership. And that's exactly how it should be. You know what I'm saying? That's how it should be. And you can go outside, tell somebody walking down the street, this is it. You know what I'm saying?
But you got to show them.
But you got to show them, But you got to program. And I think that starts at the base, like the roots. You know what I'm saying? And you might have to, I think you shared something the other day about just changing the way you think. What was it? Like about it was like reprogramming pretty much the way you think and I guess passing that on to the younger generation. Because there's a lot of things I think the older people tell us, like, oh, you should go do this, you should go do that, but they ain't got really nothing to show for it. You know what I'm saying? Or they're not really, and then you go back to the whole grown thing. You want to go do grown things. Grown thing to us look like going to the club, going to the bar, going out late night.
To an immature mind, that's what grown is.
That's what grown look like, and that's what we kind of get conditioned to. But instead of exposing our kids to things like the 24-hour man conference or these little events and stuff that they can actually learn something. I see Bilal's, the cooks, like he always bring the young boys here, and they always got something to say. You know what I'm saying? They're always very and stuff like that. in my opinion, that's the way to go.
It's about faith, though. So when you go back to faith and trust, right? You have to be able to trust the process. We don't want to trust the process. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. When you think about that process, there's sacrifice also attached to faith. You know, the Bible says faith without works is dead, right? But there's also sacrifice attached to your faith. So, you know, you have to have faith enough to say that because I'm not gonna go out clubbing like everybody else, because that's what our kids see.
But that's a trade-off. Me and him talked about it the other day. It's not really a sacrifice because you're not losing anything really.
What you're losing though is this idea from the time that I was 6 until I was 21. This is what I wanted, right? So this is what I wanted all of my life. You know what I mean? So when I finally get there and I can do it, and now I'm being told I can't do it because it's not about me; it's about future generations. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's where I say the sacrifice comes in. That right? Absolutely. The other sacrifice was.
But I think sacrifice is like a scary word for people. You know,
but it's so. You're right. It's a scary word. I
feel like
but
it could be. And when I say trade-off, more like an investment. Like, you know, instead of investing this $10, let's say, into my cryptocurrency, I could go use this for some McDonald's or.
But let's use the word sacrifice and take the fear of it out, because we shouldn't fear it. You know what I mean? Because we have to make sacrifices.
Absolutely,
and for me, with my faith is embedded in Jesus Christ, right? And he was what? A sacrifice. His father sent him as a sacrifice.
Absolutely.
So who am I to be afraid of the sacrifice? Because the sacrifice is what set me free.
Absolutely.
You see what I'm saying? So like we can't be afraid of the word or try to sugarcoat it or spoon feed people things, because the reality is you have to say, if you want anything, there has to be sacrifice attached to it. You know what I mean?
I'm with it.
I was listening to y'all podcast yesterday, and I heard y'all talking about the faith and believing that you can achieve whatever it is you want to achieve. But, it starts with the faith. But after faith, there has to be sacrifice, because we all know that if there's anything that's worth having, it's worth working for, right? So if you don't work for it, you're not going to get it. I don't care how strong your faith is. I don't care how much you believe it to be. So you can't will anything to be without works. You about to run a marathon, but you sacrifice an hour of your day minimum to run on that treadmill to get 8.5 miles. You feel me? And physically, you're already fit. You know what I mean? So you're sacrificing your time for something that you want. Because most people who are on a treadmill are trying to be fit or get fit or stay fit. You already there. You know what I mean? But you got to sacrifice, because if you don't do that on the treadmill, when you hit that starting line, it don't matter how much you want it. You know what I'm saying? You ain't going to finish without that sacrifice.
And that preparation and that work you put in.
And work is sacrifice. You know what I mean? Like, it's sacrifice in time that you can be doing what you quote unquote want to do.
That's real.
Absolutely.
That's great, because we was having that conversation, and we like to just shift the perspective so much, and like sometimes we just need to put words in the right context instead of actually just trying to rearrange the word. But you're so right, because you cannot skip that. That's like a stone that you cannot skip when you're climbing. So
it's like a harsh reality for some people.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Because we know what sacrifice is to be so resentful and so dreadful. Like, even thinking about Jesus Christ, thinking about what his sacrifice looked like. Even thinking of that, I don't want nothing to do with that. That was bloody. That was this.
I'm
and
cool
that.
Off that.
And then we think about our ancestors. We think about slavery. We think, I don't want sacrifice. That's all sacrifice though. And it's like, who wants that? So we do definitely we separate ourselves from that word, but it's
true.
It's real.
See me, I'm very I like the harsh reality.
The transparency.
Because to me, I feel like that's the only thing to get you really through. It's going through the hard stuff. You know what I'm saying? Whether you fear it or however you feel about it, like getting through that sacrifice or the harsh reality of the situation, that's the best way to go, because now you don't felt it at its worst. You know what I'm saying? So I try to soften it up for people who are scared or too fearful, who may not be able to get over that hump, but that's the reality of the situation. It's sacrifice.
See, and if you sweeten it up, when they go through it, they won't be able to go through it, because it's not as sweet as you made it sound. You feel me?
That's true.
And when I think about the word sacrifice, if I close my eyes, I see my mother. You know what I mean? Because my mother, my mother was an orphan when she was 12. Both her parents had passed away by the time she was 12. And she bounced around between her sisters' houses, but they were already married. Yeah, my mom was a change of life baby. But when I think about when my mom moved us to Duquesne and the sacrifice that she made, like, she worked 3 jobs at a time, you know what I mean? And we still barely had bologna and cheese. So when I think about sacrifice, I see that, you know what I mean? I wrestle with it, because, I'm not in that position, and my sons don't even have to see that, you know what I mean? So like, they'll never appreciate that level of sacrifice. So my mom wanted to let her hair down and go out. Who am I to take that away from her? You know what I mean? Like, she didn't have parents when she was 12. You know what I mean? So like, when she's 25 and 26, 27, and she want to go party, like, psh, like what she done been through, do your thing. You know what I mean? But I'll be honest, as a kid, I was like, you supposed to be my mom. But now I can look back and see that sacrifice, and that sacrifice is what gave me the strength, because I was coming home at 6 years old by myself with a key, because my sister was already working. You see what I'm saying? So my sister's at work. I'm coming home with a key by myself, making myself a snack, and by 11, I cooked dinner for the family for the first time. You feel me? So, like, those things, you know what I mean? Like, but I am who I am because of her sacrifice.
I agree.
And my kids will be who they're going to be because of the sacrifice they see me make. You know what I mean?
And I think it goes back, like you said, the ancestors. Like, I mean, they went through the hardest thing probably in history. Like, people always say, oh, there was slavery everywhere else. It wasn't American slavery. You know
right.
And I mean, it was all bad. Like, you know what I'm saying? Don't get me wrong. But they went through certain tortures and stuff that wasn't necessarily like all over in other continents and countries and stuff like that. And I think, Martin Luther King, like, they put their lives on the line for the betterment of their people in the future. And you didn't even really see that maybe until, I mean, he was shifting things during that time, but it's still, even today.
It's still cloudy.
Yeah, it's still cloudy. And it's these sacrifices that these people put in before our time that enabled us to be who we are now, to give us the opportunity to be the people that we are, and to have the impact on the others around us in our communities, to try to shift more, like, you know what I'm saying?
I think that measurement's a big piece. Then, like, we need to stop worrying about that measurement of what a sacrifice looks like according to each person. It's going to be unique, like, it's going to be different. And we talk about the conditioning and that programming of kids, just upbringing, like we said, we said to be grown, you do this. To be an adult, you do this. And you look for these things. And if you don't do them things, you look resented. You look like you're not fitting in. You look like an outcast. So it's like, if we start conditioning our youth and those who even beyond, and like you said, those grown kids, if we start trying to just make that shift where it's like, what it looks like to be grown is sacrifice, and what it looks like to be grown is responsibility within trying to gain ownership over some things, instead of just saying, communication.
The sacrifice is not negative; it's necessary.
It's
That's
inevitable.
the thing; it's necessary. You can't get anything in this life without some level of sacrifice. You know what I mean? Like, that's, at the end of the day, just what it is. You know what I mean? Like, my dad died when I was 12. You know what I mean? But he taught me things at 9 and 10 that there's some grown folks don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, I knew how he financed his cars when I was a kid. Okay. Like, so he never had a car note, but he always had a car note. Let me explain that. So he always would put a car note away. Every paycheck, he's putting a car note away. You know what I mean? So 5 years, when that car that he's driving ain't what he wanted to drive, or it ain't what he needed to be, he has a whole bank account that's just for his car. So when he gets ready to go buy a new car, he gets the whole trade-in value, which he can't.
No interest.
No interest. He's not accepting $500 because I could just take it and put it on the block and sell it myself. Then you know what I mean. So he's not accepting the low ball offer for his trade-in, and then he has all the money to pay the car off today. So when he drives off of that lot, he's not beholden to anybody. I knew that when I was 9. You see what I mean? Right. Now, did I do that? I didn't do that. You know what I mean? Because he died when I was 12. My mom was a financial struggle. So, you know what I mean? I was deprogrammed from what he taught me. You know what I mean? Listen, we ain't have it to save. Like, you know what I mean? So we weren't programmed to save because, get what you want now. You know what I mean? Don't worry about later.
Worry about it later.
That's one thing. You can't have one piece of the pie, the ingredient, and then not have the other piece and think it's gonna work. Like, I might know how to save, but if I don't know how to actually budget and not how to actually bring income in, then I can't save.
It don't matter. Like, saving is a mute point. Yeah, so that piece, it's that grown folk thing is just so overrated. You know what I mean? It's overrated.
We gotta switch that. We gotta shift it. It's just so it sets you up for just having your eye on something such as knowing that this is what I'm going to be one day when I reach this certain age, and you just got your hip mindset there, like just that surface of when I'm 21 I can drink, when I'm 21 I can drink, when I'm 21 I can do this. It's like knowing that, like, if we just train our households to think of something else when they turn 21 and what they can actually accomplish and do, how much more greater can it be?
Man, what? Hey, y'all was talking.
And we don't do that though. We don't do that. And we have so many schools of thoughts, and now, I feel even worse for newer generations, you know what I mean? So like for me, my environment was everything that influenced me. You know what I mean? So like I had in the neighborhood I lived in, we had the drug dealer, we had the alcoholic, we had the man who worked. I saw all of those things in real time in my community. You know what I mean? Like now, you got the influencer on Facebook. You got the get rich quick scheme guys on there. You know what I mean? So you on Instagram. So you have all of these other outside influences, and then you talk about what's happening in your neighborhood. You know what I mean? So you have those influences. So these kids' minds, they have so much to process that, you know, I don't think they know whether they're coming or they're going. You know what I mean? Like, and every day is something different that's influencing them. You know what I mean? So, you know.
And it's not real.
Like, and we don't even have strong family bases. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, like, you don't even have any influence from your parents. You know what I mean? So, like, I'm so grateful that my kids can come to me and ask me questions.
That's great.
You know what I mean? And then decide what they want to do. You know what I mean? Like, they don't always listen to what I say and do what I want, but, you know, they learn things. You know what I mean? Like, one of the proudest moments in my life was when I came home and my son Eric, who had moved out, was sitting outside my house changing his brakes because he knew I had all the tools. Yeah. And I taught him how to change his brakes. He told me the other day, he said, Dad, I think the first time you taught me, I was like 8. You know what I mean? But he knows now he's never going to pay to change brakes. You know what I mean? And I haven't paid first time probably in 20 years, last time I got my brake changed, that I paid somebody else to change my brakes. You know what I mean? Haircut. I cut my own hair since they was little. You know what I mean? I take them to the barbershop, but I cut my own hair. So, you know, they know these things, you know what I mean? And they're proud of who they are. You know what I mean? Even when it's not popular, even when other people don't feel it, they're proud of who they are.
Man, I think that pride word in the family, like, it's such a big thing because I think there's so many people trying to attach themselves to other people or the other people's family. You know, I've been in a unique situation where, you know, I've been pretty much attaching myself to other people's family a lot because I didn't grow up with a big family, you know. Father passed when I was 6. My mom, she was there, you know what I'm saying, but I was always out the house. I wasn't never really in the house kid. Like, I'm always everywhere else, and everybody was accepting me in, and it, like, you know, that was – and I'm very prideful in who I am and where my family is, my ancestors and all that. I'm glad to be a Tymous, you know what I'm saying? But I want to instill that into my future family, you know what I'm saying? So, but that's a big thing because you see – kids who aren't prideful in who they are, who their family were, they go out and them influences get them. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's the streets, whether it's drugs, whether it's alcohol, whatever it is, and they kind of lose themselves. You know what I'm saying? And they get attached to these things that just, you know, it gets a hold of them. And then even at that, we talk about just like the influence of you teaching. I ain't gonna lie, like growing up, like I had people's parents being cool with me and my friends like smoking in the crib. You know what I'm saying? Like they're like, oh, here, hit this. You know what I'm saying? Go do this. Go ahead. You know, man, there's a lot. Like there's a lot of going on and bad leadership out there. You know, and it's just, I don't know. It's crazy that you say that. And I really do appreciate you and people like yourself because people like you are making a real impact every day. And whether or not, you know, I'm sure sometimes it might not seem like it. You know what I'm saying? Because you might teach a kid something, he might go out and do some boneheaded stuff the next day. But in reality, I think in the back of their head, they're still thinking about you and what you said.
And that's the key right there, bro. Like I said, my kids are not angels. You know what I mean? But I know without a shadow of a doubt, for me. But I know without a shadow of a doubt, you know, and to my knowledge, and it's only to my knowledge, none of them have ever smoked, none of them have never drank. And I know for a fact that if they are presented with an opportunity, they think about the lessons that they learned, right? Because I don't just tell them the fun side of it. You know what I mean? Like I talk about the people my friends who are alcoholics. I talk about my friends who, when they say weed is not a bad drug or can't wake up in the morning without smoking weed. I talk about those things. You know what I mean? So like it looks all fun and games, and there are some people who are very functional who do those things. You know what I mean? But ultimately, it does not do you any good. You know what I mean? Like alcohol hurts your body. Period. You know what I'm saying? Like it feels good in the moment, everybody does it, it's legal, but it hurts your body. Cigarettes hurt your body, you know what I mean? So like my youngest, he's all into his body, you know what I mean? So like he's always, what am I eating? What am I putting in my body? You know what I'm saying? And am I working out?
Yeah, I came over, I saw the weights and stuff down there.
So he came in the basement, you know what I mean? Like he's all about
it. I want to keep this. No, I'm cool.
So when you look at it from that perspective, you know what I mean? Like all you can do as a parent, this is for any parent, all you can do is teach your kids. You can't make them do anything, you know what I mean? Right. Like, and I can't hold your hand and be there, you know what I mean? So, like, again, we were very selective about where our kids went, who they went with, you know what I mean? Now, they're selective on their own, like, you know what I mean? So, like, they decide what, you know, if we give them some freedom, it's like, no, I'm cool, I'm not going to that, you know what I mean? Like, my second oldest in college, he's like, Dad, I'm the designated driver, you know what I mean? Because I just don't see the value in drinking. He'll go to the party, you know what I'm saying?
That's so, man, what? and me and him could attest to it. Like we was drinking and stuff when we was 21, like and there was a point where we was both just like cool. Like there just ain't nothing like coming from it. Like it was always something. Like I always said nothing good happens after 12 a.m. You know what I'm saying? After that, like I mean, the only thing that could happen is either nothing or something bad. Like but nothing good is coming most of the time. And it's just. We've been in positions where we have been in bad situations stemmed from drinking or stemmed from going out or stemmed from clubbing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And like obviously sometimes it's temporary fun. You have your fun, whatever. But then you look back on it, you see how your body's feeling the next day. You sick or you go work out and you just not feeling. You can't do it.
You can't function.
And the decisions you made, the regret on what you did, and those things on which you instill within yourself, it's just not beneficial.
It felt good in the moment. You know what I mean? I was done drinking. Here's and this is when you see the favor of God on your life. Mm-hmm. I was by the time I turned 21, I was already drunk out. Like when they said you can go in the bar, and I was like, that's old news, cause like we've been drinking since he was 15. Like my one boy had a beard when we was 14, so this dude was going. Had a beard 6'1". This dude was going in the bar and buying cases of 40s. You know what I mean? Like we was 14 and 15. So by the time I hit 21, I was like drinking is like played out. So I'm in college, at a level of maturity where all these other people are just now getting freedom. Right. So they're losing their minds. You know what I mean? Sure. And me and my wife are sitting back looking like, y'all look real funny right now. But
you see how long that. They wait till they're sometimes, if they're lucky,
the late bloomers.
30 years old is when they start to they're done. They want to be done. But then you do have your late bloomers who don't start till they're like 25. And them is the scary ones because they might not even realize that it's really hurting them until they're like 40, 45. Right. And by that time, their body is relying on it. So now it's even more difficult to stop because now if you don't do this,
and now it's your coping mechanism. You know what I mean? And that's the danger of all of these things that we call recreational. Is that, they take you away for a moment. You know what I mean? Drugs, alcohol, all takes you away for a moment. And at first it's just fun. I'm out here with everybody else. We're doing this thing. But then after a while, it's like, I can't take my day. So I just need to get a beer. You know what I mean? Like, my father was a functional alcoholic. My father drank a fifth of whiskey every day. And he smoked a pack of Pall Malls, which are filterless cigarettes, every day. And he died when he was 56. And I was 12. You feel me? So my whole thought process was, I don't want that, you know what I mean? Right. And it hit me one day when I was about 17. I came home drunk, and this was the first time that my mom saw me drunk. She knew I drank, you know what I mean? But it's the first time she saw me drunk. And she sat me down on the couch, and I'm 3 sheets to the wind. So, you know what I mean? Like, the fact that I remember this, it had to be God, because she said to me, I can't stop you from doing anything. She said, but here's the reality. You have alcoholism on your father's side and on your mother's side. So you are treading in dangerous waters right now.
Consider it a gene. Like
so, when she spoke that to me, I didn't quit drinking immediately, but that was always in the back of my mind. Like she said, I can't stop you. You know what I mean? She said, you're bigger than me. You're stronger than me. Ain't nothing I can do with you. The board, she had this board that don't work no more. You know what I mean? She's like, all I can do is talk to you now. Your dad's not here. My dad had been dead for 5 years at that point. There's nobody in my life that's not doing this. My sister's husband at the time, he's drinking, he's smoking. Everybody that I know in my neighborhood is drinking and smoking. So it's like there is no alternative. And I see everybody functioning in different places and spaces. I see some people selling dope. Some dudes who go to work every day. But the common denominator is that we all drinking and smoking. You know what I mean? So
trauma bonding you was talking about.
That trauma bond, bro. So, that part. But when she said that to me, it always clicked in the back of my mind like, yeah, this ain't it. You know what I mean? Because I'm treading on thin ice right now because this could be the end of my life at 17.
No, you said it. You said it big time, man.
It's there. It's huge. It's major. We all see it. We all go through it. But it's like, to call a spade, and to really, just understand that it's all supplemental. Like understanding that all substances are supplemental. Like from the drinking to the gambling to the going out, dealing with different females, different men, like we said it last episode, but it's just so real. And then once you realize like the things that you can do that are internal instead of those things that are external, and just really just have that desire and not seek and not sought to play something else, I say, obviously God, having God, feel that gap within all those things. The liberty there is way different. The freedom, the peace, the healing is way different. So that's great, man. We know we got 55 minutes right now, but there is something I wanted to make sure before we do get out of here to touch on. First of all, using man, I'm glad you started how we started, because edifying him would have took 30 minutes. I'm glad we did that how we did that, because that's a lot. This man wear a lot of hats. He does a lot of things in the community, a lot of things
Staple,
in general.
Man,
He's one of them. We call him people's pastor for a reason, man. He's for the people, but even just in the space that we're in right now, Launchbox down here in McKeesport, could you just speak to this program? Because a lot of people are curious what's going on around here. And I'm like, man, this ain't my program. I'll push out to this guy. He'll tell it more.
Go to the source.
The Launchbox, just in brief, started in 2017. The president of Penn State University put forth the initiative to spur economic development in our communities. He asked every campus, and there's 21 of us across the state, to develop a program that your community can use to spur economic development through entrepreneurship. So that was the mandate. We went to Oakland, California. We went to St. Louis, Missouri. Saw different spaces, and this is what we created when we came back. But what our community needed was different. Most entrepreneurship hubs are all focused on tech and, $1 million products. We focus on mom and pop, Main Street businesses. You know what I mean? And again, for me personally, going back to our earlier conversation, is about legacy. You know what I mean? So if I can help somebody start a business that they can build a legacy, and it's not about success or failure. You know what I mean? It's about the attempt. The greatest opportunity to fail was to never make an attempt.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, to have somebody come in here and make an attempt to start a business and see some level of success, and if that's just completing my paperwork and selling one of my widgets, that was a goal that I set. I did it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Did I become a billionaire? Nah. But at the end of the day, to be able to say to your kids that I wanted to sell this widget, I established my business, I sold this widget, and now my kid knows that if he or she has an idea or something they want to do, that they can go and do the same thing. So what we do here is we do one-on-one coaching is our main thing. So if you want to start a business, come out and check us out. We don't know everything, but we know some things, and we'll coach you through whatever we can. And whatever we don't know, we'll push in the right direction. You know what I mean? The information is going to be in the description, so y'all can go make sure y'all check that out, the address. We'll link y'all to some websites and some pages where y'all can get some more information in the detail. But I do want to say, even for us, at least for me personally, like, I feel like it's a space where I can build confidence as far as the entrepreneurship journey go. Coming in here, setting up, talking, just meeting different people, talking to different people. It's been a great experience so far. And, I definitely push many people to come out here to kind of build that confidence up, because that's important too. Like when you're starting, because if you starting something, you ain't got no confidence, like you go be scared, you know what I'm saying, and you might fall like. And that struggle, just to see other people struggle, and another word that we don't like to use because it implies weakness. But when you see somebody else struggling but still fighting, that gives you power, like you said. So when you walk in this space and you see somebody selling candles, somebody selling T-shirts, and then somebody have a moving business, and they all struggling, like, yo, this is dope. You know what I mean? Like, tell me about your struggles. I tell you about mine. Because you see people working through their kinks, and they could honestly give you game on how you could work through yours or the processes of the stuff that they're going through. Yeah. And that you might apply it to your stuff. So.
And the bond's different. It's not a trauma bond. It's an empowerment. It's I lift you up, you lift me up. We got resources I can give you, you can give me, and that's a whole different perspective when you said it like that. It's like, because what do we learn, right? We learn Mark Cuban started out selling newspapers in Pittsburgh, and now he owns the Dallas Mavericks. Nah, cuz that ain't how it happened. Yeah, you know what I mean? Right. Like, and he's a shark on Shark Tank. But what did he have to go through to get there? What is he going through to stay there? Yeah. I promise you, his problems might not be exactly the same, but the issue is the same. You know what I mean? Same struggle, different level. You know what I'm saying? So that's the main thing. We also do co-working space. So one of the main things about getting financing from banks is that you have to have an address. And typically, as a business owner, and you go deeper into that with Black and brown business owners, when you walk into a bank and your business address is the same as your home address, they're more reluctant to serve you in terms of giving you finances. So we also offer, for a small fee a month, you can have this space to come and work in at your leisure, but also get your mailing address here too. So it provides more leverage, and that's, for me, that's economic development. It's good. It's big, because you know how many people don't know that, like, don't know you can even do that, don't know that that's even possible. So. Again, man, like, that's the information right there that I didn't even know that, but I could probably tell you that 95, if not higher, percent of people don't know that. And it's what they don't tell you. You know what I mean? Hit it, but nowhere in the book though.
Because again, you know, it's deep. We talked about it. We didn't touch on that, but in particular, you look at redlining in this country. We're doing the same thing for business owners. You know what I mean? Redlining meant that you couldn't live in certain communities because we didn't want you there. So you ain't get no bank loan to live in Mount Lebanon. Well, if you want to live in McKeesport, if you live in McKeesport, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that piece right there, and it's the same thing with business owners. You know what I mean? You know, just because you're black or brown, you know, people might not like it, but the truth of the matter is, you're seen as a risk already. Without seeing any documentation, without seeing anything on paper, you're a risk because you're black or you're brown. Because we already know the success rates amongst black and brown businesses, and some of that is analytical. It's not even racist; it's analytical.
It's factual. You know what I mean?
But why is it factual? Because we don't get loans to sustain our businesses.
Exactly.
So you know we can't solve one without the other.
Whatever we got is what we got. We don't know how to leverage anything, and that's a bad place to be in. Is not know how to leverage stuff, especially as far as trying to sustain and even just scale a business. Like,
period.
You have to, or you're only going to be stuck to the confinements on what you can bring in. And usually that is not unless you got something going on where it's that one hit wonder or whatever the case.
We lost.
Yeah, it's tough.
We lost. We lose. So that's it. That's
great. That's a great place. I mean, come down to the launch box. Y'all heard it here. You know, this is the man. Many people has been asking about like what's going on down there, and you know, and then, you know, you've been doing this for some time. This space is new
since October. Yeah, but 2017 we started over on 9th Street in McKeesport, and you know had a lot of successes. You know what I mean? But I've taken some L's. You know what I mean? So when I first started out this journey, you know, a brother of mine who's now moved on to Oklahoma, he was actually an originator, and I was his support. He's now moved on, and now I'm kind of left as one of the only originators. But there's a team of people, we call them the street team, who work with me to gather all of this information and to keep all of this stuff going. But yeah, man, it's been a blessing though to be able to be a linchpin, to be able to be a support for all businesses, because I work with, you know, Caucasian businesses, women businesses as well. You know what I mean? But the biggest benefit for me as an African American has been able to help, you know, other African Americans, you know, realize their dream. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I said, sometimes, you know, something simple as a logo, you know what I'm saying? Because when you have a vision in your mind, you don't have the resources to make it come to fruition. And somebody helps you bring that to fruition, you know what I mean? Like, back to your point, Duane, it just gives you that drive to keep going, you know what I mean? Like, I did that. You feel, you know what I mean? Like, it's actually there. So that piece, so yeah.
That's good.
Proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the pudding. I love it, man. No, I definitely just want to again say appreciate you, man. Where we at? About an hour, a little over an hour. So go ahead and wrap this up, man. Definitely appreciate you, man. Thank you for coming on.
Sorry for the wrong hand.
Oh no, you good. You good, man. I also want to say thank you to the support crew for tuning in to another episode of the Moral Support Podcast. Be sure to check the details in the description, man, and check us back out next time, man.
Yeah, man. We appreciate you, man. We'll see y'all soon, support crew.
All right. Be blessed.